You know what almost every gardener does wrong in the heat of summer? They let their plants struggle through stress, thinking all they need is more water or some generic store-bought fertilizer. That's the fast track to weak, disease-prone crops and wasted effort. What gardeners don't realize is that much of the stress their plants experience comes from a lack of active microbial life in the soil, which kitchen scraps can fix, if you do it the right way. And today I'm going to show you exactly how to turn your kitchen waste into a miracle tea that revives struggling summer crops, whether you're working in raised beds, a backyard garden, or even a hydroponic setup. If you care about your food and results, you'll want to subscribe now because the tips I'm sharing are not surface-level fluff. Before we jump in, if you're serious about composting properly, you need to know what's happening inside your pile. I've been testing this method for years, and having a reliable way to track compost temperatures makes all the difference. I personally use the RioTemp 36-inch Fahrenheit Backyard Pro Compost Thermometer with digital composting guide. It's in the description below. It lets you monitor microbial activity so you know when your compost is ready to make this tea, rather than guessing and ending up with weak, sour-smelling sludge. The biggest mistake gardeners make is throwing scraps into the soil and expecting magic. I see it all the time. People toss veggie peelings, coffee grounds, and eggshells into the garden, thinking the nutrients will just appear in their plants. That works maybe 10% of the time if your soil is already healthy, but in most gardens, you end up with partially decomposed scraps that attract pests or burn roots. The reality is that the nutrients locked in kitchen waste are only available to plants after microbial digestion. That's where compost tea comes in. It's the concentrated, soluble extract of healthy compost, loaded with beneficial microbes, enzymes, and nutrients that plants can actually use immediately. Start by collecting your kitchen scraps like a gardener who actually plans to use them. You need to be selective. Avoid meat, dairy, and oily leftovers. They'll just attract flies and cause anaerobic smells. Stick with vegetable trimmings, fruit peels, coffee grounds, crushed eggshells, and herb clippings. If you have a backyard full of leaves, grass clippings, or straw, those can be folded in too. I usually aim for a mix of roughly 2/3 greens like veggie scraps and 1/3 browns like dry leaves or paper. This ratio keeps your compost active without turning it into a stinky mess. Once you have your scraps, chop them up. Finer pieces speed up decomposition. For example, carrot tops, potato peels, and apple cores should be cut down to 2-inch pieces at most. This increases surface area for the microbes to work on and accelerates the brewing process for your tea. So make sure your compost is active before you start brewing tea. Temperature is everything here. This is where, honestly, the RioTemp thermometer really comes in handy. Compost activity actually peaks when the pile is between 130 and 150 degrees Fahrenheit. If your compost isn't hitting that range, your tea is going to be weak because the microbial population is still ramping up. A thermophilic compost not only breaks down scraps quickly, but it also kills most pathogens and seeds, ensuring your tea is safe to spray on plants. In my experience, small raised beds can be ready in just 10 to 14 days with regular turning, while larger backyard piles might take about a month. Brewing the miracle tea is honestly surprisingly simple once you know the ratios. You'll need roughly 1 gallon of finished active compost to 5 gallons of water. Use dechlorinated water if possible. Tap water left to sit for 24 hours usually works just fine. Place your compost in a large bucket or container and fill it with water. Now, here's the secret that, many gardeners overlook. You want to aerate it. Stirring vigorously for about 10 minutes or using an aquarium air pump creates those oxygen-rich conditions that encourage the beneficial bacteria and fungi to multiply. If you skip this step, you risk creating anaerobic conditions, which not only reduces nutrients, but can produce harmful compounds that stress your plants. Let the mixture sit for 24 to 48 hours. Check it every 12 hours and give it a stir. You're looking for a rich, earthy smell. If it smells sour or rotten, something went wrong, usually either too much green material or not enough aeration. You can adjust the water to compost ratio slightly if needed. I've experimented with denser teas for hydroponics. using a 1:2 compost to water ratio, but for soil-based beds, the 1:5 ratio works best to avoid burning roots. Applying the tea is honestly where most gardeners get it wrong. Folks either drench the soil too heavily or sprinkle lightly and then wonder why nothing happens. For established summer crops under heat stress, like tomatoes, peppers, and beans, I apply the tea directly to the root zone once every 7 to 10 days. In small raised beds, I'll pour a gallon or two along the base of each plant, letting it soak in slowly. Foliar spraying is also effective, especially in hot weather, because the microbes colonize leaf surfaces and suppress certain pathogens. Just be sure to apply early in the morning or late afternoon to prevent leaf burn. In hydroponic systems, I use the tea sparingly, about a cup per 5 gallons of nutrient solution, or because the microbes are concentrated and honestly, you don't want to overload the system. You need to keep your compost and tea active if you want consistent results. Once you've brewed your first batch, don't let it sit too long. Microbial populations peak quickly and then decline. Any tea left over after 48 hours should either be applied immediately or return to the soil as a top dressing. I found that rotating kitchen scraps weekly keeps my compost continuously active, so there's always fresh tea ready for the crops that are under stress. Let's talk about real results, because that's what matters. When I started applying this method, I noticed stressed tomato plants bouncing back in just 3 to 5 days. Leaves that were yellowing due to heat stress regained color, and blossoms that had dropped started producing fruit again. Beans and peppers got stronger stems, and even my lettuce, which tends to bolt in summer, stayed tender longer. The difference between standard fertilization and this compost tea is night and day. The soil's biology changes, not just its nutrient profile. A quick note on trade-offs. Some gardeners insist on chemical supplements for quick fixes. I'll be honest, there's a place for them if you need an immediate nutrient boost. But they won't build the microbial ecosystem that makes your plants resilient over time. Compost tea isn't an overnight miracle, but it's a sustained solution. The more consistently you use it, the more self-sufficient your garden becomes. If you combine this with proper watering, mulching, and shade management during hot spells, you're creating a system that practically takes care of itself. Don't underestimate measuring and adjusting your compost. Even experienced gardeners skip this step. Without monitoring temperature and moisture, your compost could be underperforming and your miracle tea will be weak. I can't stress enough how helpful the RioTemp 36-inch Fahrenheit Backyard Pro Compost Thermometer with digital composting guide has been for me. It not only shows the temperature, but guides you on turning schedules and moisture levels, making your compost and your tea far more reliable. The link is in the description if you want to get one. To recap, collect kitchen scraps thoughtfully, chop them finely, make sure your compost is active, brew your tea in the right ratios with oxygen, apply it properly, and keep your system cycling. Do this consistently, and your summer crops won't just survive, they'll thrive. You'll see healthier foliage, stronger stems, improved flowering, and increased yields. More importantly, you'll be feeding the soil, not just the plants, which is the secret all serious gardeners eventually learn. If you're ready to take your summer garden to the next level, subscribe to the Husbandry channel. I post practical tested methods like this every week, showing you how to get real results from your soil, beds, and hydroponic setups. And if you found this useful, share it with a friend who's struggling with summer crops. Let's grow better food the smart way.